Easter Island and you look at the sites there, the statues, the megalithic walls, you realize they're much older than what history tells us.
When scientists began digging beneath the island's famous stone heads, they uncovered something no one had ever expected. These aren't just heads, they're complete bodies, hidden underground for centuries. But that's only the beginning. Hidden chambers, mysterious writing systems, and evidence of a civilization far more advanced than anyone imagined have come to light. Archaeologists also discovered tools, artifacts, and carvings that suggest complex rituals and sophisticated engineering techniques. With each discovery, it's clear that everything we thought we knew about Easter Island is wrong. What archaeologists actually found beneath Easter Island will leave you shocked. The truth beneath the surface will completely change how you see this remote Pacific island and its incredible history. The hidden bodies. For years, people around the world thought that Easter Island was covered with giant stone heads staring out at the ocean. Pictures in books and magazines showed these mysterious faces rising from the grass. But archaeologists knew that something didn't add up. In 2010, a team of scientists decided to dig into these statues. What they found changed everything we thought we knew about Easter Island. These weren't just heads. They were complete human figures, buried deep underground. Dr. Jo Ann Van Tilburg led the Easter Island Statue Project team as they carefully removed dirt and rocks from around the moai. The deeper they dug, the more of the statue's true forms appeared. First shoulders, then chests, and then arms folded across their stomachs. Some statues had bodies that went down 30 feet underground. The buried bodies revealed incredible details that had been hidden for centuries. The statues had intricate designs carved into their backs, spirals, crescents, and other symbols that told stories about the people who built them. These carvings had been perfectly preserved by the earth that had buried them. However, what really shocked the archaeologists was that the statues weren't randomly placed around the island. Each one was positioned exactly where it was supposed to be, facing inland toward the villages where people lived. It was as if they were watching over their descendants, protecting them from harm. The digging revealed more unique features. Many of the statues wore hats called pukau, giant red stone cylinders that sat on top of their heads. These weren't just decorations. They represented the top knots that important chiefs wore in their hair. The bigger the hat, the more important the person the statue represented. As the team dug deeper, they found tools scattered around the statue's feet. Stone picks, hammers, and carving instruments lay exactly where the ancient workers had dropped them. It looked like everyone had suddenly stopped working and left the site in a hurry, leaving their tools behind. The preserved bodies also showed that the moai builders were incredibly skilled artists. The statues had realistic features, long ears, prominent noses, and stern expressions that felt alive. Some even had eyes made from white coral with black stone pupils, which made them look as if they were truly watching its people. These weren't primitive people making simple stone heads. They were sophisticated artists and engineers creating complex monuments that required incredible planning and skill. The mysterious red pigment discovery. In 2011, archaeologists made another discovery that left them shocked. While digging near the famous quarry at Rano Raraku, they found dozens of pits filled with bright red pigment. But this wasn't just any red coloring. This was a special mixture that had been carefully prepared and stored underground. The red pigment was made from hematite and magamite, iron oxides that created a striking crimson color. However, what made this discovery so puzzling was that the pits were dated to between 1200 and 1650 CE, long after the island's forests had disappeared. Scientists had always believed that once the trees were gone, civilization had collapsed. But these pigment pits proved something entirely different. Even after losing their forests, the people of Easter Island continued to work on large-scale projects. They were still organized, still creating, and still following their ancient traditions. Dr. Welmode from the Mosgard Museum studied the pigment pits carefully. Each pit was lined with stones and covered with a carefully fitted lid. The pigment inside was pure and perfectly preserved, like it had been made yesterday. But what were they using all this red pigment for? The answer is connected to something deeply important in Polynesian culture. Red was considered a sacred color, representing power and spiritual energy. The people painted their moai statues, ceremonial objects, and their bodies during important rituals. The amount of pigment found was enormous, enough to paint hundreds of statues multiple times. This meant that the island's population was still large and well-organized, centuries later than scientists had thought. They weren't a dying civilization struggling to survive. They were a thriving community maintaining their most important traditions. Archaeological evidence shows that some moai were indeed painted red. One statue in the Metropolitan Museum of Art still has traces of reddish pigment on its surface. Hoa Hakananaya, now in the British Museum, was covered in maroon and white paint when it was removed from the island in 1868. The pigment discovery also revealed something about the island's social structure. Creating and storing this much pigment required coordination between different groups. People had to mine the iron oxides, process them into pigment, transport them to storage sites, and organize their use for ceremonies. This wasn't a random activity. It was a carefully planned project that required leadership and teamwork. The red pigment pits reveal that Easter Island society was far more complex and enduring than anyone had previously imagined. The discovery raises new questions about what really happened on Easter Island. If people were still creating pigment on a massive scale in the 1600s, when did the civilization actually decline? What caused the eventual collapse? And how many other secrets are still buried beneath the island's surface? The secret underground chambers. While excavating around the moai platforms called ahu, archaeologists found another discovery that revealed a completely different side of Easter Island culture. Hidden beneath several platforms, they found elaborate burial chambers that had been sealed for centuries. These were sophisticated underground rooms, built with the same precise stone-fitting techniques used for the surface monuments. The chambers had been carefully designed to protect their contents from earthquakes, flooding, and the passage of time. Inside the burial chambers, archaeologists found the remains of important individuals, along with artifacts that showed Easter Island's connections to the wider Pacific world. There were tools made from obsidian volcanic glass, jewelry crafted from shells found thousands of miles away, and wooden objects carved with intricate designs. But the most significant discovery was what these burials revealed about Easter Island society. The people buried in the chambers weren't random individuals. They were carefully selected members of the community, most likely chiefs, priests, and master craftsmen, who had earned the honor of being interred beneath the sacred moai platforms. The construction of these burial chambers required incredible engineering skill. The builders had to excavate solid rock, fit massive stone blocks together without mortar, and create waterproof seals that would last for centuries. All of this work was done in secret, hidden beneath the platforms where the giant statues stood guard. Some chambers contained multiple generations of the same family, suggesting that certain bloodlines held special importance in Easter Island society. The oldest burials dated back to around 1000 CE, proving that the island had been continuously inhabited and culturally active for much longer than previously thought. Archaeological evidence from the chambers also solved another mystery about the moai. Many statues had small niches carved into their platforms, and scientists hadn't been sure what these were for. The burial chamber discoveries revealed that these niches held offerings for the ancestors buried below: food, water, and precious objects meant to honor the dead. The chambers also contained traces of the red pigment found elsewhere on the island, suggesting that burial ceremonies involved painting both the dead and the mourners with the sacred color. The burial chambers showed that Easter Island culture was never truly primitive or simple. The level of planning, craftsmanship, and social organization required to build these hidden chambers, while simultaneously creating the surface monuments, indicates a highly sophisticated civilization. The discovery of the burial chambers also raises new questions about what other secrets could be hidden beneath Easter Island. If elaborate underground burial chambers existed beneath some ahu platforms, what could be found under others? How many more chambers remain undiscovered, waiting for future archaeologists to reveal their mysteries? The Coral Eye Revelation. In 1978, archaeologist Sergio Rapu made a discovery that literally brought the moai statues back to life. While examining fragments of white material found around various moai sites, he realized he was looking at pieces of giant coral eyes that had once made the statues appear startlingly realistic. For centuries, visitors to Easter Island had seen the moai as blank-faced giants staring blindly across the landscape. The eye sockets appeared to be simply carved depressions, giving the statues a mysterious but lifeless appearance. No one suspected that these carved depressions had once held carefully crafted eyes that would have made the moai come alive. Rapu's team painstakingly collected and reassembled the coral fragments, discovering that the eyes were masterpieces of ancient craftsmanship. Each eye was carved from brilliant white coral, with a perfectly round pupil made from either black obsidian or red scoria, a type of volcanic rock. When placed in the statue's eye sockets, these eyes would have gleamed in the sunlight, appearing to watch everything around them. The discovery explained several mysteries surrounding the construction and placement of moai. The statues weren't randomly positioned around the island. They were carefully oriented so that their coral eyes would catch the light at specific times of day. During ceremonies, the eyes would have appeared to glow, creating a supernatural effect that must have been breathtaking to witness. However, installing the coral eyes wasn't simple. Each eye had to be perfectly fitted to its statue's unique eye socket. This meant that eyes were custom-made for individual moai, probably by specialist craftsmen who understood both coral carving and the spiritual significance of bringing the statues to life. The coral eyes also revealed something important about Easter Island's timeline. The eyes were only added after a moai had been transported to its final location and erected on its platform. This was the final step in a complex process that could take years to complete: quarrying the statue, carving it, transporting it across the island, erecting it on a platform, and finally installing its eyes. Archaeological evidence suggests that not all moai received coral eyes. The honor seemed reserved for the most important statues, those representing the most powerful ancestors, or those placed at the most sacred ceremonial sites. This created a hierarchy among the moai that reflected the social structure of the living community. The discovery of the coral eye also connects to Easter Island's oral traditions. Native stories speak of statues that could see and watch over their descendants. For centuries, outsiders dismissed these as primitive superstitions. But the coral eyes proved that the statues really did see, at least in the minds of the people who created them. When modern researchers created replica coral eyes and installed them in a moai, the effect was dramatic. Once the installation of the coral eyes was done, the team's research leader echoed what everyone was thinking. This is disturbing. The blank, mysterious statue suddenly appeared alert and aware, seeming to focus its attention on anyone who approached. It was easy to understand why the ancient islanders believed their ancestors were truly present in these magnificent monuments. The coral eyes remind us that Easter Island's moai were never meant to be the silent, blind giants we see today. They were the watchers and protectors of an entire culture. The Rongo Rongo writing mystery. In 1864, a French missionary named Eugène Hérault made a discovery that stunned the academic world. Scattered throughout Easter Island, he found wooden tablets covered with mysterious symbols, unlike any writing system known to exist in the Pacific. The islanders called these tablets Rongo Rongo, meaning to chant, recite. These weren't random scratches or decorative patterns. They were intentional. The symbols were carefully organized in neat rows, following a unique writing pattern called baustrophodon, where lines alternate direction, reading left to right, then right to left. This sophisticated system suggested a highly developed literary culture. The Rongo Rongo tablets contained hundreds of different symbols representing birds, fish, plants, human figures, and abstract shapes. Some symbols appeared frequently, while others showed up only occasionally, suggesting that they represented different types of information, perhaps names, numbers, and ceremonial instructions. But here's where the mystery deepens. By the time missionaries arrived in the 1860s, very few islanders could still read the tablets. The knowledge was dying out, and the people who remembered how to interpret the symbols were reluctant to share their secrets with outsiders. What makes this discovery so remarkable is that Easter Island would be the only place in all of Polynesia to develop its own writing system. Nowhere else across the vast Pacific, not Hawaii, Tahiti, New Zealand, or any other island group, had indigenous people who created a written language before European contact. The tablets themselves were works of art. Carved from precious wood using shark teeth and obsidian tools, each symbol was perfectly formed and carefully spaced. The wood came from trees that no longer existed on the island, suggesting that the tablets were either very old or made from driftwood that had floated ashore from distant lands. Scholars have spent over 150 years attempting to decipher the rongo-rongo symbols, but their meaning remains largely mysterious. Some researchers believe that the tablets record genealogies, tracing family lines back to the island's first settlers. Others think they contain religious chants, astronomical observations, or historical accounts of important events. The few islanders who claimed to remember the rongo-rongo tradition said that the tablets weren't meant to be read silently like books. Instead, they were memory aids for trained chanters who would recite long oral traditions while following the symbols. The tablets helped them remember the correct order and details of complex stories that could take hours to perform. This oral-written combination would have made rongo-rongo unique among the world's writing systems. Rather than replacing spoken tradition, the written symbols supported and preserved it, creating a double layer of cultural memory that could survive even if one part was lost. The rongo-rongo mystery represents one of archaeology's greatest unsolved puzzles. These tablets prove that Easter Island's culture was far more sophisticated than anyone imagined, a society capable of developing innovations that existed nowhere else in their region of the world. The Birdman Cult archaeological evidence. While excavating the ceremonial site of Orongo, archaeologists uncovered evidence of a religious transformation that profoundly altered Easter Island society. Sometime around 1400 CE, the island's focus shifted from ancestor worship and moai construction to an entirely different god, centered around a half-bird, half-human figure called the Birdman. The archaeological evidence for this change is dramatic and undeniable. The construction of new moai suddenly stopped. Existing statues were abandoned in place, some still unfinished in the quarries. The island's energy turned toward creating an elaborate ceremonial complex on the rim of Ranokau Crater, overlooking 3 small offshore islands. At Orongo, archaeologists discovered 53 stone houses constructed with a unique corbelled roof technique, which is unknown elsewhere in Polynesia. These weren't ordinary homes. They were temporary shelters for participants in the annual Birdman competition, the most important ceremony in the island's later history. The walls of these houses and the surrounding rocks are covered with over 480 petroglyphs, showing Birdman figures, Make, the creator god, and ceremonial scenes. These rock carvings were made by pecking designs into the hard basalt using stone tools, creating images that have survived centuries of harsh weather. The Birdman ceremony centered around a dangerous competition held each spring. Representatives from different clans would swim across shark-infested waters to the offshore island of Motu Nui to collect the first egg laid by migrating sooty terns. The winner's sponsor would become the Birdman for that year, controlling the island's resources and holding supreme power. Archaeological excavations at Orongo revealed the remnants of this ceremony. Stone tools, bird bones, and eggshell fragments scattered around the site show where participants prepared for their dangerous journey. Obsidian knives and spear points found in the area suggest that the competition was often violent, with rivals fighting over access to the nesting sites. The transformation from moai worship to the Birdman cult represents a complete reorganization of Easter Island society. Instead of honoring individual ancestors through permanent stone monuments, the new system emphasized annual renewal and competition between living clans. Power shifted from hereditary chiefs to those who could prove their spiritual strength through a dangerous ritual. This change might have been triggered by environmental pressure. As the island's resources became scarce, traditional authority based on ancestor worship may have seemed inadequate. The Birdman cult offered a new way to determine leadership based on courage, skill, and divine favor, rather than birth. The archaeological evidence also suggests that the Birdman cult was more than just a local phenomenon on Easter Island. Birdman petroglyphs found elsewhere in Polynesia suggest connections to similar beliefs across the Pacific. The cult may have represented Easter Island's attempt to reconnect with the broader Polynesian world after centuries of isolation. The Orongo site provides the clearest archaeological evidence of cultural change on Easter Island. Unlike the gradual evolution of moai styles over centuries, the shift to birdman worship was sudden and complete, marking the end of one era and the beginning of another in this remarkable island's history. The DNA and population revelations. Recent archaeological discoveries combined with DNA analysis have revealed shocking truths about what really happened to Easter Island's population. For decades, scientists believed that the island suffered from an ecological collapse that led to warfare, cannibalism, and societal breakdown. But new evidence paints a very different picture. DNA studies of ancient bones found in archaeological sites show that Easter Island maintained a stable population for centuries longer than anyone thought possible. The genetic evidence reveals continuous occupation and healthy community structure, right up until European contact in 1722. Archaeological excavations have uncovered settlement sites dating from 1200 CE to the 1600s, showing no signs of the warfare and chaos described in earlier theories. Instead, researchers found evidence of organized communities with sophisticated agriculture, continued monument construction, and complex social ceremonies. The real population disaster came only after European contact, and it was far worse than anyone had imagined. Historical records combined with archaeological evidence show that Easter Island's population declined from approximately 3,000 people to just 111 survivors by 1877, a devastating 96% decrease in just 150 years. The primary cause wasn't ecological collapse or internal warfare. It was disease and slave raids from the outside world. Smallpox, tuberculosis, and other European diseases swept through a population with no immunity, killing entire families and destroying the island's social structure. Even more devastating were the Peruvian slave raids of 1862 and 1863. Archaeological evidence from this period shows the sudden abandonment of many settlement sites. Over 1,400 islanders, about half of the population, were kidnapped and forced into slavery in South American mines and plantations. Most died within months from harsh conditions and disease. The few survivors who eventually returned to Easter Island brought smallpox with them, triggering an epidemic that killed most of the remaining population. Archaeological sites from this period reveal hasty burials and abandoned settlements, indicating a community struggling to survive in the face of complete collapse. DNA analysis of the surviving population reveals a remarkable aspect of Easter Island's resilience. Despite losing 96% of their people, the genetic diversity of modern Rapa Nui shows that they maintained their Polynesian heritage. They didn't intermarry extensively with outsiders, but instead rebuilt their community from within the small group of survivors. The archaeological record also reveals how quickly traditional knowledge was lost. Rongo writing, moai construction techniques, and complex ceremonial practices were all lost within a single generation, because too few elders survived to pass them on. However, perhaps most significantly, the population collapse helps explain many mysteries surrounding Easter Island's monuments. The abrupt abandonment of moai construction, the scattered stone tools at quarry sites, and the toppling of erected statues all happened during the population crisis of the 1800s, not centuries earlier, as previously thought. Modern archaeological techniques, combined with DNA analysis, have completely rewritten the history of Easter Island. Rather than a cautionary tale about environmental destruction, it's actually a story about cultural resilience in the face of devastating external pressures and the remarkable ability of small communities to preserve their identity, even after near extinction. The modern archaeological revolution. Today's archaeologists working on Easter Island have access to technologies that would have seemed like magic to earlier researchers. Ground-penetrating radar, satellite imagery, DNA analysis, and 3D modeling are revealing secrets that traditional excavation methods could never uncover. Recent ground-penetrating radar surveys have detected dozens of previously unknown structures buried beneath the island's surface. Each discovery adds new pieces to the puzzle of Easter Island's complex history. Satellite imagery analysis has revolutionized archaeologists' understanding of the island's landscape. From space, researchers can see faint traces of ancient roads, abandoned settlements, and agricultural terraces that are invisible from ground level. These images reveal that the island was far more densely populated and extensively modified than anyone had previously realized. 3D laser scanning of the moai statues has created incredibly detailed digital models that preserve every carving mark and surface detail. This technology allows researchers to study the statues without risking damage from handling. Perhaps most exciting is the ongoing Easter Island Statue Project, which continues to excavate buried moai and document their hidden features. Each newly revealed statue adds to our understanding of Easter Island's artistic traditions and social organization. The project has already excavated over 150 statues, and hundreds more remain buried. Modern archaeological methods are also helping solve practical mysteries about the moai. Computer modeling and engineering analysis have tested different theories about how the statues were carved, transported, and erected. These studies combine traditional archaeological evidence with cutting-edge technology to gain a deeper understanding of ancient engineering techniques. The combination of all of these new discoveries is creating a completely new understanding of Easter Island. Rather than a simple story of rise and collapse, the island's history is revealing itself as a complex narrative of innovation, adaptation, cultural change, and resilience. Future archaeological work on Easter Island will likely reveal even more shocking surprises. With hundreds of moai still buried, dozens of sites yet to be fully excavated, and new technologies being developed constantly, the island's secrets are far from fully revealed. What archaeologists have found beneath Easter Island truly is shocking. Not because it confirms old theories about collapse and failure, but because it reveals a story of human achievement and survival that's far more remarkable than anyone had imagined. The true Easter Island story is just beginning to be told. If you could explore one hidden mystery on Easter Island, would it be the chambers, the writing, or the statues? Share your thoughts in the comment section below and let us know